been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's going on, guys? Tony and Tristan back here with the One Hell of a Life Outdoor Podcast. What's going on, son?
Oh, it's just Wednesday here in Hotlanta, and just trying to get through another work week and get closer to fall and hunting season.
Man, I hear that, right? It's we're all thinking about it. We're in that little dry stage of the year, as we would call it from a hunter's perspective, where you're like, if you're not a fisherman, this is when you fish. If you're a hunter. You know what I mean? You're finding something to do out there.
When you can't hunt,
Yep. So, but y'all, we're super excited for our guest tonight. So many of you have heard of Target Focused Life. We got Steve Gould here. Did I say that right, Steve?
You got it.
Got it. Perfect. And Steve owns and runs Target Focused Life. This guy is an incredible source of information, and I can't wait to learn a lot tonight, Tristan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was kind of watching a little bit. Forgive me for not being a follower up until I learned you were coming on the podcast, Steve. But I was watching some of your YouTube stuff and watching the intro. You know, that intro you got is about 2 minutes long on the page and stuff. And I'm really excited to. It kind of spurred some questions I put on here on the outline, so I'm excited to get into it.
Heck yeah, man. So, man, with that said, Steve, thank you for taking the time with us tonight. And, man, please just give everybody a little bit of background about yourself, both personally and professionally, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here with you guys. Looking forward to it. Well, personally, I grew up in Minnesota, still live in Minnesota. I grew up in rural Minnesota, though, the beautiful part we're about 2 hours northwest of Minneapolis. I live on a little piece of property, 80 acres, just out in the country. I can only see one house from where I'm at, and they're about 3/4 of a mile away. And I just love being in the country. I love people too. Don't get me wrong, but I love to retreat to my little property out here and sit on my tractor in the evenings and mow grass and dig holes and try to do what I call manly things. But
there you go.
It's a little bit of my therapy in the evenings. But growing up in Minnesota, rural Minnesota, like a lot of hunters, a lot of farmers, just very connected with the outdoors. But I didn't really grow up hunting or shooting at all. In fact, I don't think I was just thinking about this before the podcast. I don't think I shot a clay target until third year of college, second, third year of college, something like that. And I got the opportunity to hunt a few times growing up, but I never really had a mentor in hunting. My parents didn't hunt, and had a few opportunities to go out with friends, hunt ducks in the Dakotas, hunt deer. I think once I hunted deer through high school. And but I was just a normal kid. I was chasing girls and clothes and sports and all that stuff. But hunting and shooting was not a big part of my life at that point.
Now, did that, I would imagine, just kind of from outside looking in, that probably spurred some of the motivation, I guess, for Target Focused Life, right? Looking at it from the perspective of it sounds like you had to kind of learn a lot of this stuff on your own, or no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Throughout the process, I've learned a ton from other people, but in the early days, it really was the school of just hard knocks and just learning through mistakes and kind of that slow grind. But as part of my story, how I actually got into shooting for a living was I was in college and just kind of doing the same old thing, been dating this gal for the last 5 years since high school. And kind of got to that point where it's like, okay, 1 year of college left, going to graduate and going to school for finance, by the way. And what's next? Well, I suppose we'll get jobs, we'll get married. But every time I started thinking about marriage to this gal, I had a very uneasy feeling. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew I was kind of wrestling with something there. But then something kind of interesting happened. I had a friend invite me to a college-age church service. And what's so funny about that is, like, I grew up going to church, but when I was on my own, when I was at college, that wasn't part of my life. I didn't, that's maybe for later on in life, but that's not now. I'm too busy trying to have fun and do my own thing. But for some reason, I said yes. My girlfriend said yes, a few other friends, and we ended up there. And I really had no idea how that night was going to change the whole trajectory of my life. Because as I sat there, and I actually was listening to kids share a little bit of their story before they'd get baptized, and they would just kind of mention what their life was like before Christ and after. And I just really realized in that moment that everything I'd been pursuing, I could go through a whole list, air out my dirty laundry, but I'll save that for episode number 2 that we do together.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I realized it was leading to emptiness. Like I wasn't fulfilled, even though I was doing anything I wanted. And so I gave my heart to Christ that night, and my whole world started to shift. And there was a lot of things I no longer wanted to do, but I think what was really fascinating is all of a sudden there was things I wanted to do. And that's when I started to have a desire to go out and hunt, to be in the Dakotas, to be on the prairie potholes and hunt ducks. And that's where I fell in love with the outdoors. And that led to goose hunting, and that led to deer hunting and archery and just all sorts of pursuits in the outdoors.
Do you want coffee that doesn't suck? Get the Duck. Dirty Duck coffee is made specifically for the waterfowl enthusiast. Enjoy flavors like Morning Wood, Dark Dynasty, Cinnamon Teal Snickerdoodle, and First Flight to unlock the flavor that you'll enjoy in the blind for years to come. Our friends at Dirty Duck Coffee Company are now offering all Zero Duck 30 followers a 15% discount when you use code ZeroDuck15 on your next order.
But in the summer, you guys mentioned this is when people fish. Well, I mean, people that really love duck hunting, shouldn't they be shooting those clay birds?
Yeah,
sharpening up their shotgun skills? Yeah.
Sure.
So I started shooting clays. And the first time I went out to shoot clays, I shot 2 out of 25. So I was a natural from the beginning. It was just written on the wall right there. I'm good at this.
Nice, like
But-
8% average.
Yeah, no, I was terrible, but I enjoyed shooting clays, and I sort of felt like I'm a competitive person. It's like, I got to be able to get better at this. So I just shot clays for a few summers, just backyard clays, right? Nothing official, no trap or sporting clay courses or anything like that. But then in 2010, I went to a live exhibition, a trick shooting show by this man named Tom Knapp. You guys ever heard of Tom Knapp?
Yeah, I've heard the name, but I can't connect.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I don't know.
So Tom has passed away now, but for many years, he performed these live entertainment shows with a shotgun at all over the world, really. And I had no idea what this was about, even though I had started doing some basic trick shots. But I went to this live show, watched it, and just had this deep feeling that this is what I'm called to do. I'm called to be a professional exhibition shooter. Then the inside goes, your brain starts to say, but you're not even good at shooting. And you're terrified of public speaking. Although I got to say this, guys, I was an award-winning public speaker in college.
Ah,
Oh, okay.
very
Yeah,
good.
I received the award for the most nervous public speaker. I hated being in front of people. I hated standing up and being the center of attention. And so many things didn't make sense. I'm not good, terrible at public speaking. Not overly handsome. I mean, pretty handsome, but not overly handsome. No connections in the industry. But that led me down a journey that really eventually led to Target Focus Life about 14 years later.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, man. Now, isn't that crazy how, everybody's got a different path to God, it's all a different sanctification process for everybody individually. And it's just so incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us, that personal part of your life, because I think, at least as far as Tristan and I, as far as we go with that, it's a very huge part of our life. And you hit the nail around the head, is that sometimes you can just feel lost, and one way and even when you're with God, even that sometimes, and it's even harder when you're not. But one thing my father-in-law has always said, over the years, is that God's like being under the eagle in a nest, right? And if you start get out to the edge of the nest, the eagle will stick its wing out to help protect you, but at some point you're going to fall out of the nest. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But man, no, seriously, thank you, because you're exactly right. That whole piece right there of bringing you to where you are at with target focused life, that I mean, I'm not surprised. Really, it's just from just a Christian, another Christian standpoint, I guess.
Yeah, I think what's so cool about the journey is just like I can so clearly look back now and see the path that I was on, and it had nothing to do with shooting and hunting. I was going to be a financial advisor, and I kind of had my plan, but there was a 180 there, and God, I think God was waiting on me to yield my life to Him, to surrender to Him, for Him to say, okay, now hold on, because I got great things in store for you. Yeah. But He wasn't going to put that out in front of me until I was willing to say, hey, my life is not my own. I'll live for you. Yeah. And so just to jump in for one more minute to continue that led my brother and I to start a live exhibition show that we went on to perform for 14 years.
Really?
That was primarily what we did. We entertained people with shotguns, and we did that all across the country.
Wow.
And had just an amazing journey. But what happened during that journey is I started to look back and reflect, and I had a new desire to create something out of this. And so Target Focused Life was born out of that. And there's two parts to Target Focused Life. One is we're passionate about shotguns and all things related to shotguns, whether that's wing shooting, whatever it is, clay shooting, anything pertaining to what you would use a shotgun for. And I had some knowledge. I'm not going to say I was an expert. I'm not going to say I'm an expert now, but I'm continuing to grow and learn as I go. And I started creating content around shotguns, and started, what really helped was the shotgun reviews, because it turns out there's not many people doing it well here in the United States. So I started doing the shotgun reviews. But the other part of Target Focused Life that I think is equally as important is that I realized we're capable of so much more in this life. Growing up in rural Minnesota, small town, sort of sheltered, limited mindset, I had no idea what was out there, what was possible. And as I've traveled and met so many more people and developed personally, I started to gain some understanding. So we have 3 principles with Target Focused Life, and these don't apply to the field, they apply to life. That's the second part. You got the field and you got the life. And that is vision, creating clear vision in your life, dialing in the focus on the right things, and pulling trigger. Actually, those apply to both. I lied. That applies to the field and to life. Those are principles for shooting targets with a shotgun, but those are also principles of living what we call the Target Focused Life.
I love it. I love it. I love the correlation. Man.
No, that's great stuff, man. I think you said it in your intro, Steve, that when I think is where you were kind of tying in like the two sides of Target Focused Life, but you said something in there about when you get a group of ducks, you don't just pull up and just shoot, because a lot of times you're not going to hit. It's when you are extremely laser focused on something is when you're going to have success. And I think that's kind of what you were getting at with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've realized many times over, and I'm still realizing every day, the importance of focus. As I get distracted from different things and I open too many boxes and I'm not successful in what I'm doing, I realize that focus, a lot of times boils down to your ability to focus. And you've tried to flock shoot ducks before, right? That usually doesn't turn out real well.
No.
But when we can apply focus to a small area, it's powerful.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, how many times, I'm not going to speak for Steve, but maybe 14 years ago or whatever, but how many times, Tristan, we've taken a shot, and you, that next shot you take, the first one, you're like, what was I thinking in that split second? And then you're like, all right, and you slow it down and you pick a bird out and bam, and the next thing you know, you're like, son of a gun, I hit that thing,
Yeah, what usually happens to me, I think it's like just especially if it's kind of a rushed morning, like, and just pertaining to duck hunting, like, you're trying to get everything set up and, you're running it right to shooting light, and then you're, all right, shooting light, let's go. And then that first flock comes in and you're kind of like not really calmed down yet. So then you flock shoot and then you miss. And then it's like that second group, at least for me, that's when it's like, all right, I made the same mistake I make every time. Now I'm going to focus and pick a bird next time. And then sometimes you never get another flock the rest of the morning, and then you're just mad at yourself.
It's definitely a humbling process, no doubt about it, man. And I was just sitting there thinking about the fact of, how many times I've done that in my life. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't even want to admit it. And there's so many of my friends, me saying this right now, that I've got some great stories to talk about, but part of me wanting to get better as a shooter is following this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. And so, Tristan, you had a great question. You were wanting to talk to him about beginners,
Yeah, I think just looking at things, because like you, Steve, I didn't pick up I was a bow hunter up until, I don't know, I was like 20, so I'm 27 now. So, I mean, I didn't pick up a shotgun up until I was 20, and, everything I learned was just from people telling me what to do or whatever, and I still probably don't do it right more than half of the time. I just get lucky and kill birds sometimes, but
it's a big spread.
So just from that aspect, I kind of just wanted to walk it back to just from a beginner's mindset, and who knows, maybe reset some bad habits that I'm doing or whatever, but just dive into it from a beginner's mindset, just the fundamentals of being a successful clay shooter or wing shooter,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could go a lot of different directions with this, but to boil it down to some of the basics, understanding the eyes, I always start with the eyes. The eyes are huge because you put a shotgun on one side or the other, right? Mm-hmm. And we all have I shouldn't say we all. Most of us have a dominant eye. Most people do, not all. And if you're mounting on the wrong side and you're looking crossways at the gun, it's hard for your hand-eye coordination to.
Listen up, guys. Waterfowl season will be here before you know it, so book a hunt today. Williamson Outfitters offers exceptional duck hunting along Florida's Forgotten Coast, targeting redheads, bluebills, buffleheads, canvasbacks, and much, much more. Lodging and fishing packages are also available. Mention the One Hell of a Life podcast when booking and get 15% off your next trip. Spots are filling up fast, so call or text Captain Chris at 850-251-8650 or visit floridaducks.com.
Work, because that's really what shotgun shooting is. It's hand-eye coordination. So understanding the eyes, what side is your dominant eye? That's important because we're going to mount on that side, and that allows us to keep both eyes open, which is incredibly important. This is some of the big stuff that I see people mess up. They close one eye because usually they're left eye dominant, but they're shooting on the right side, and they're too stubborn to want to change. Is that either of you guys one eye closers?
No, I don't think I'm a one eye closer.
I don't think
I'm used to shooting with two eyes open when we shoot bows.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely not with ducks, and I think with clay shooting though, sometimes I've noticed that if I actually aim it, I'm more successful at clay shooting, which I know is not like translating to like my duck hunting because you want to have both eyes open or whatever. But to answer your question, I think when I'm in the field, both eyes open.
So you're basically, Tristan, you're throwing the football when you're in the field, but when you're practicing, you're putting a laser on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't know why.
That's well
I do that.
said. Yeah,
but
no, I mean for real, because I mean I'm sure, Steve, you would say it's hand-eye coordination, but so much of this, I mean psychologically, it's got to have muscle memory's got to be a big part of all this.
Yeah, but in order for that muscle memory to work, your eyes have to work first.
Yeah.
And so think about, did you guys play any sports?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, football, baseball, anything like that?
Football.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine being a receiver and you're running down the field with one eye. You just all of a sudden close one eye, that ball's coming in, and you're trying to catch it. Like it just totally changes your depth perception, your ability to judge the speed and movement of objects. And I mean, you can picture any sport that you've played and try doing it, just all of a sudden closing one eye.
Yeah.
It changes how we perceive the world.
Wow.
And we want that depth perception. We want our brain. Our brain is so incredibly powerful. Like our brain calculates all this stuff, and we just sort of move to what we see. And that works pretty darn well. And so don't limit your brain by closing one eye. You only get half the visual data. So that's a big piece right there, starting with the eyes. Then we always look at gun fit. Most people are shooting guns that don't fit them well. And that plays in with the eyes, right? If your eye's not over the rib, if the gun's not fitting well, you're not going to shoot well.
Sure.
And practice, of course, is huge. And not just pulling the trigger. Like there's so much practice you can do without ever pulling the trigger, really, because having a good mount, being able to mount consistently, because if you're not mounting consistently, your eyes hitting a different spot every time, you're getting a different visual picture, and it's going to make you inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of the mount is the move. How we move to a bird. And this is something I see hunters mess up all the time when they come out to shoot clays. And this is part of the reason they stink at shooting clays, some of them. I'm not going to put everyone in that basket.
Can you throw some Marines into that basket, please? I'm just messing with some of my Marine buddies.
The benefit of shooting clays is that we know where it's coming from, right? So we can put the muzzle in a place that makes the game easier to minimize gun movement. You can't always do that while hunting, but some of the same things apply. Once we start to mount and make our move towards the target, how do we do it? There's different types of lead. Practicing those things, either dry practicing or actually going out and shooting clays, is beneficial for sure. But lastly, the last thing I would say for beginners, and this is probably the number one thing that I see them mess up, is where they place. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Where they place their focus. Focus.
Yes, focus.
A lot of people like you, Tristan, either they started shooting bows or rifles or pistols, and there's different ways to shoot bows too. I know this, but a lot of people they aim, right? You're shooting a stationary object, whether you're shooting a pistol, rifle, or bow. You're shooting a stationary object. You're checking the sights. You're lining it up perfectly. Am I on? Am I on? Pull the trigger or release.
Yep.
But with a shotgun, we don't aim. We point. Everyone knows how to point. Almost anyone can look at an object in the distance, raise their finger as they stare at the object and say, right there.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
They can point. That's all we're doing with the shotgun. We're not aiming. If the gun fits us, we understand our eyes, we mount well, then it's just a matter of looking at what we want to shoot at and making sure our focus is in the right place.
Yeah, that's a great way just to simplify it, you know?
Yeah, no. And what I love about this is, I mean, I'm just going back to whenever I was learning how to shoot a shotgun, right? I mean, I was just doing the best I could based on the principles of archery, you know? I mean, and when you know, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And you breaking it down that way, Steve, really just dials in specific points. I mean, you're talking about the fitting of a gun, you know, and as you're saying that, I'm talking about, you know, I remember the first time I took golf lessons, the guy said, so you want to get good at golf? And I said, yeah. And he goes, don't do anything until you can afford to have these clubs fitted for you. And I was like,
that sounds expensive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I just want to hit the ball, you know? And guess what? I think there's some folks out there that they just want to hit the ball, but they don't realize these specific things that make such a big difference. And I just, you know, the mount and the gun thing, I had to figure that out on my own. You know, I had to figure out how to shim the gun myself. And I still don't know if I got it right, to be quite honest with you, Steve. So, you know, you're going to have to help me out with that. But no, thank you so much for sharing those things. You know, when you ever, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, Tristan.
Oh yeah, you got the mold eyes.
Yeah. What do you think, you know, what are some of the most common mistakes you see with people specifically to waterfowl hunting? As far as shooting waterfowl.
That is a good one. I would say it's going to tie back into what I just said. It's probably checking the bead or the lead. That's again pulling your focus, right? If you're looking at your bead, if your focus is on your bead, it's not on the bird. If it's on the lead, it's not on the bird. and you will probably miss. And after you've had a couple misses, that's when people really start to do that because they're losing their confidence. So they're tempted to, is my bead lined up? Am I there? Do I have enough lead? Let me start looking at the lead. And people that shoot clays really understand that shoot clays well, I should say, is if you're looking at your lead, you're probably going to miss.
That's a good point. I was always taught, and my mom was at one time was, I've mentioned this several times, but just so you know, but she at one time was labeled as America's best lady bow hunter, number 2 in nationals, open field archery.
Wow.
She was something else back in the 90s, early 90s and late 80s. And, the way she would teach people to shoot the bow was focus on the target. And guess what? The pin goes there. And if you stay focused on that exact spot, that exact place, your sight just goes there, and I think that's kind of like what you're almost discussing there with the shotgun.
Yeah, kind of to your point about like if you could just pick your finger up and point and be like, oh, about right there.
Yeah.
Just kind of keeping it that simple, I guess.
Yeah, I love sports, although the older I get, the less able I am, but I still enjoy them. And I think about basketball, right? Anyone that's shot a basketball knows they don't consciously think about, how hard am I going to jump? 72%?
Yeah.
How hard am I going to flick my wrist? Right? That's the muscle memory part.
Yeah.
Is once you've started making hoops and you've visually seen it time and time again, you're no longer thinking, right? You're just responding. As long as your focus is in the right place, the body does the rest.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think kind of to jump a little bit ahead, just since we're on the waterfowl topic, one thing that I've struggled with, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Steve, is like if we're sitting in a pit blind, for an example, or a blind with like a covered roof, and like you get the flocks coming in, you're hunting with a guy that's, down at the end and calling the shot, and then like all of a sudden he's like push down the front of it or push down and then you got to acquire a target like relatively quickly versus like some blind setups, you can see the ducks coming in the whole time. Like,
and the guy that's telling you to keep your head down.
Right. That's you can't
see anything.
So you push it down and then there's a bunch of freaking teal flipping out all over the place and you got to try to put a, shot on one. And have you just thought of anything for those scenarios or seen anything that, can you picture kind of what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just tough. Like,
yeah, but
go ahead.
Been there, done that. The word that comes to mind is panic.
Yeah.
Right. It's a little bit of a panic.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
100%.
I'm not saying that I all the time execute this well, because I certainly don't. Like I understand a lot of principles and I put them to practice and I'm pretty good, but there's a lot of times I got to go back to the principles. I just keep going back. Hey, you know what? I'm really not applying this well myself. But I would think in a scenario like that, just slowing it down mentally, right? You pop out and you see the blur and the immediate thing is just start shooting because they're getting away.
Yeah.
Right.
But just slow it down. Don't pull the trigger until you see that eyeball or you see the part of the duck clearly, and you're just, okay, now, boom. Easier said than done, I know. Invite me down duck hunting, and I'll show you that I can mess it up as well as you.
No, but you're right though. I mean, I'm trying to replay that in my mind in scenarios that I've been with Tristan talking about throwing the flap down. And the whole time the guy's like, keep your head down, and all this stuff. And keep in mind too, we're also trying to film. All right, and we have all these things going on, and yeah, I mean, you're afraid they're going to get away.
Yeah, it creates that panic, like you said.
Especially with the teal, because they're like such crackheads, the green wings anyway. The way that they're flipping and flopping around the spread, and the crazy things they can do really just sends you into a serious panic.
The bigger groups definitely, which are usually the teal, like that's definitely, I think, the panic. Because when there's just like two birds and you're in that scenario, it just feels, it's not so overwhelming, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you can mentally slow it down, that does a world of good. The thing that's tough with hunting out of blinds and stuff is often your gun's not in a position that's most ideal. You end up with a lot of gun movement. And because you're rushed, you're whipping the gun, you're flying past the target, whatever. That's part of what makes it so dang fun, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right,
true.
right. And then you got the guys yelling at you, don't shoot past 10 and 2, and so you're trying to be aware of that, and I'm just thinking, we're pretty used to it now because we've shot a lot, but, as a new hunter, you're coming into a blind, right, for the first time being guided on a duck hunt somewhere, and this guide is telling you, hey, keep your shots between 10 and 2, and you're trying to be super safe about it. You're like, just in that inexperience, you could be missing shots or doing something silly and not meaning to, just because of the restrictions with that. So it's reps and sets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You
guys are making me want to go duck hunting.
We'll chase a bunch of ducks and most of the time, like we're big about sharing the reality of hunting, and guess what? Most of the time you don't kill a lot of them. I don't care unless you're at honey break every weekend or something like that. It's not the reality of whether you're on public land or private land, unless you just have thousands of acres that you can manage like that. It's very difficult. But
do you think hunting would lose its luster though if every time out you were just bag limits every time?
It would for sure
if it was easy. Yeah, I think part of what keeps you coming back is you have that day and it's phenomenal. Then the next few times you go out, it's tough and things aren't going your way, and it keeps driving you to go back because you don't know how it's going to turn out any given day.
Yeah, no, you're right. And for me, while we're on this topic, I'm just going to talk about this from a guide. And, I helped out with my buddy at Delta Thunder this year and did some guiding on snow goose conservation this season. And it was actually my first year doing that. I professionally guided deer hunts several years, but first time I took on that challenge, I was unemployed at the time, and it was great for me just to get engulfed in it and learned a lot from Kade out there. And one thing that I found in my hunting career after doing this for 40-something years is nothing hurts worse, man, than when you have a feed of thousands of geese and they're just naturally on your property and you're like, bro, all I got to do is get over there in the middle of the night and set everything up, and me and my clients we're going to shoot hundreds, and they just go somewhere else. And that hurts, bro. It really hurts. And but that's what makes it fun, right? It's that time you catch that bass, or you shoot a rare duck, or some of our best hunts that we've ever had haven't been about the quantities at all. It's just been about the experience and the I don't even know we might have a lot of great hunting stories that don't even include harvesting an animal, quite honestly, but no, that's awesome.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One of the biggest things I like about hunting is adventure, the unknown, but getting out in creation, watching the sunrise, watching the sunset, observing nature, being with people. That's one of the things I like about wing shooting is you get to be with people. You get to have conversations and laugh. And I love to deer hunt as well. But, several days sitting in a stand by myself, I'm pretty sick of myself by then. So
thought about everything.
That's one of the things I love about wing shooting. Yeah, exactly. After the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just a quick curveball I want to throw in because it's a quick, easy question for him, I think. Just to give everybody, I saw this picture of you with shotgun shells just piled in front of you, and I was thinking about over the last several days about, man, how many shells has this guy shot in his life? It's got to be maybe 1 million. I don't know. But, how many shots do you think you've taken with a shotgun?
Oh, you said it was going to be easy. Now you want me to do math?
Because I've always thought about how many arrows I've ever shot in my life, from all the practice and everything else. And there's no way I could. What would you have to guess, Steve?
I would say probably 250,000, honestly.
Wow.
Just so many.
Probably a little bit more than that, but In those early days when we were doing exhibitions, it was all about exhibition shooting. And we practiced quite a bit, as you're developing a new skill. And so there was years where you might shoot 30,000 rounds in a year.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I don't think I shoot that much anymore. Of course, I'm running it as a business, and ammo isn't just it's real. It's money, right? Yep. So you got to balance. Like, I would love to go out and shoot 1,000 rounds every day, right? But that, you start getting your calculator out, you're like, that's going to be a lot of money. And so at the end of the day, when I'm running this as a business, I have to make business decisions as well, and I have to say, like, hey, here's the budget for shooting. And most of my shooting now takes place. I still do the live shows, but most of my shooting is actually doing shotgun reviews and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah. When it comes to shotguns, Steve, I think there's so many different options, especially when you're looking at it for a purpose. Like, if you're trying to get it over under to, shoot trap or whatever, and then you're looking for your waterfowl shotgun and stuff like that. And I think, pertaining to waterfowl, what would be your best advice for like a new person that's like, I want to get into this, and I see stuff from $350 up to $3,000 plus. What would be your advice for picking a shotgun if you're new to
it? I'm laughing because I'm actually developing a tool right now that helps people solve that. And I just made a YouTube live about it yesterday, and I'm trying not to say too much about it. We haven't launched it yet. Hopefully launch it in August. But throughout the course of making these reviews, I've noticed that people need a lot of help. They have a lot of questions, and I'll never be able to answer all their questions through this tool, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. When people go, hey, I want a duck gun. I want a 12 gauge. I want a semi-auto. Here's my budget range, and I want it for duck hunting. So I'll put in these criteria. What are my options?
Yeah, that's great.
And I think that's a good starting point for people. But if you really don't know what you're looking for, it is tough. There's a lot of options. And what most people do is, well, my buddy, he has a Benelli. Yep. I'm going to get a Benelli. Yep. And it sort of drives me crazy because they bought into branding, which we all do. We all do. I like Fords, not Chevys. Well, why? Well, because it has to do with marketing and branding.
Right.
You'll probably make up some practical reason based on limited sample size of experience, but it sort of drives me crazy. So as part of the process, what I like to do is try to educate people. Like, hey, here's this gun. Here's what it's all about. But here's the big thing that I think people miss: the importance of finding not the gun with all the bells and whistles, not the gun that has a brand that starts with B, Benelli, Beretta, Browning.
Right.
But a gun that fits you, or that you can make fit you, and that's enjoyable for you to shoot. That's a starting point, really. After that, you can look at all the bells and whistles and all the things. But if your gun doesn't fit you, I don't care how great it is. And luckily, most semi-autos these days, you can modify length of pull as well as drop and cast in the stock dimensions to make it fit you. The problem is most people don't know how to do that well. And as you mentioned, Tony, earlier, you've done that, but you don't know if you've done it right. And I'll say it is kind of hard to do yourself. Luckily, like, I've went out and had shotgun fittings done, and I have sheets that have my dimensions on them.
It's in the teens that morning, and maybe you're chasing ducks or geese. But now it's September and it's 85 degrees and you're hunting early teal or geese. As a waterfowler, you need dependable weather protection that will not break the bank. Founded in 1996, Frog Togs is not only the leader in breathable wader technology, but a company you can depend on to keep you warm and dry, head to toe, no matter your hunting environment. Stay bone dry by using discount code ZD315 for 15% off not only your first purchase, like most discount codes, but how about every single purchase you make from now until December 31st, 2024?
Oh, great.
Right. So I can use that as a reference point. Now, granted, most people aren't even going to be able to use that sheet because they don't have a tool. Length of pull is pretty easy to measure on your own. But some of the other ones that drop, that's hard to measure unless you have the tool to do it. So getting your gun fit, you can go to hopefully there's no good resources, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I do know a shotgun fitter. Well, then you have a resource. Or, hey, I know this guy, he's really good with this stuff. But if you don't, like, where does the average person go to? And I don't know. And we try to make videos to explain it best we can, so people are just a little more educated. But that is a big challenge.
Yeah, because I would imagine, like you go down to your local Bass Pro or whatever, and similar with like archery, and I'm not like hating on those guys down in their section. They're just, a lot of those guys are really knowledgeable too. But I would imagine like in most of those scenarios, the average dude working behind the counter is not going to be able to really, give you an accurate fitting,
No, most of the time not. In fact, even if you came to me, like I could get you close, but I would say like this is not my specialty. Fitting guns to other people is not my specialty. I've worked with gun fitters, and when that's what they do, like they know what's going on. But yeah, I think that's a big challenge. But if you know your dimensions, when you're shopping for new guns, you should be able to know, like, can I make this gun fit me? Right? If you're a 15-inch length of pole and you're looking at a gun that's 14 inches out of the box, well, it's not going to fit you. But length of pole is fairly easy to fix. Drop and cast aren't always easy to fix.
Mm.
Gotcha.
That's a little in the weeds. That's a little in the weeds.
No, but I think
No,
go ahead, Steve.
the one other thing I would say for beginners is generally you do get what you pay for, right? If you're looking for a semi-auto and you find one for $350 brand new, I don't have any specific brands or models in mind, but I'm going to tell you it's probably not very good.
Right.
If you can save up, if you can double that, get to the $700-800 range, you can get a pretty okay semi-auto. If you can get to that $1,000 range, that's the sweet spot, in my opinion. When you start looking at Winchester SX4s, Beretta Ultimas, Franke Affinity 3s, those are all right around $1,000, depending on, camo, black, whatever. They're great guns for the money.
Yeah.
Now there's guns that are is that what you have? Is that what you shoot?
Yes, sir. I mean, only because I wanted a DU. It's a DU limited edition one that I won. But immediately when I picked up that gun coming from a Pump Nova, I was like, holy smokes. Tremendous difference.
Been really impressed with that gun. Yeah, I think that's a winner right there. That's actually what my son shoots. By the way, I didn't mention this. My son performs live exhibitions with me as well.
Oh, that's great.
That is cool. And how old is he?
He's 12, and he's been doing it for the last. I just saw the clay. I signed a clay for him on his first show ever. It was August of 22. Was his first show that he was ever part of.
A 10-year-old boy. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. As I've been listening to you talk tonight, Steve, the thing that it keeps going through my mind is like, man, I hope nobody challenges this guy to climb Everest, because he might just end up on top of the world. I love it. I'm so like, I'm very detail oriented because of the military, and sometimes to my demise, and I love that you're breaking it down like this, because as I was hearing you talking about, the different things to do to correct the mistakes, and I'm sitting here thinking about, Tristan, us taking our bows and paper shooting them,
right?
And tuning that in, and I definitely have not done these kinds of things with my shotgun, if I'm being honest.
Right.
But I'm going to.
That just makes you part of the club. That makes you part of the club, guys, and it's a pretty big club. I think a lot of people, in fact, I think you mentioned it earlier in the show, Tony. It's got a big spread. That's kind of how they view shotguns, and yeah, they do. Obviously, they do spread out. They throw a pattern, but a lot of people see shotguns as just not the detail, right? You buy a rifle and you buy the nice optic and you find the right ammo and you shoot it on paper, and you take a methodical approach to it. And a lot of people don't do the same with shotguns as far as fit and finding the right loads and the right choke tubes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like shotguns have a built-in, like, just like a built-in, I don't want to call it like a laziness factor, like subconsciously, but it's almost like you're banking on the fact that you got the spread to compensate for, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
versus the rifle analogy you just used.
Right. And I think as you're saying that, Tristan, I'm thinking if we're being brutally honest, some of us as beginners, at least I think I did when I was early on, is, well, maybe I'll drop down to a 6-shot, to compensate for how bad I suck. What a, would you call that an oxymoron? I mean, that's what a bad way to think about it,
Yeah. I can't hit anything. Maybe I need a 3.5-inch shell.
Yeah.
That'll fix it.
Yeah. And I'm taking out my full choke and I'm going back to a modified or whatever.
While we're on that topic of the 3.5-inch shell, what's your take on that, Steve?
I'm supposed to be filming a video on that in soon. We put a pause on videos for the next three weeks to get this resource that I was telling you about to help people find shotguns done. So that's one of the upcoming videos. So I don't want to say too much because I also feel like I don't fully have enough knowledge to make a conclusion on that. And that's part of what some of this field testing is about. And even you'll see when I do these videos, I don't come to real hard conclusions because I want people to think about it themselves. I want them to see what results we got and sort of build their own conclusion. I'll draw some, but I don't like to say things matter of fact in some of those circumstances. Here's what my gut says. Based on just observational data a little bit and some knowledge, I'm not a big fan of 3.5-inch at all. I think it's just as easy to miss with a 3.5-inch as it is a 3-inch. I think with the big reason we ended up with 3.5-inch shells is because we went from lead to steel, right? And so it's sort of compensating for the downgrade of performance of steel. And I don't care what anyone says, and most people understand this. Steel does not perform as well as lead.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. Although there was some propaganda that came out many years ago with somebody that said it does, as they were trying to get public to buy into this. But we have so many better options now than even steel with bismuth, but trade-off money.
Right.
Tungsten, trade-off a lot more money. But we have metals that perform really, really well. But again, you can shoot tungsten, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the principles right. Right? It only matters if you were on target anyways. So I'm not a big fan. They cost more money. They hurt a lot more when you shoot them. And you don't often notice that, I guess, when you're duck hunting, if you're a full-size person, I'll say.
Yeah.
But when I'm out there testing these guns and shooting 3.5-inch shells at clays, oh my goodness. I mean, they just pound. And I don't think you gain all that much, to be honest with you. But I'm curious to put it on paper. I'm curious to shoot some gel blocks potentially and whatever other plans we work up to kind of really look at the difference. You're gaining some more pellets, and that's always advantageous, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'll be curious to check out that video. Yeah.
Yeah, no, because
what's your guys' thoughts?
Well, I will say just from general perception of people I've hunted with over the years, I would say, like, if I'm going to associate 3.5-inch shell, it's immediately going to be with a goose hunter, and even more so with guys and gals that are chasing the bigger type of geese, greater, lesser Canada geese versus, say, a snow goose. I mean, we know darn good and well that we can knock them down all day with a number 2 shot, 3-inch when it comes to a snow goose. Whether it's a Ross or whether it's a snow or a blue, or it doesn't matter. Even specs, you can get away with that. I do not have enough experience with hunting Canada geese, but I know a lot of Canada goose hunters. I always see them come in and be like, "Hell yeah, dude! I shoot 3.5 all the time because I blast them Canadas all the time." That's what I've seen the most. I've never shot 3.5.
Yeah,
You guys should talk. You should interview my buddy Corey Loeffler, DRC Call Company. he's hunted a lot of geese over the years. He'd be a fascinating podcast interview if he'd be willing to do it.
Heck
Yeah, Corey Loeffler. Good deal. We'll get that information from you when we get off
Sure.
here, because that'd be interesting to, for sure. And I think the reason I kind of brought it up is like, I mean, you see a lot of it on social media. People like talk when you kind of do some just rough research on it. But I had some buddies last year. One of them in particular grew up shooting Canada geese and ducks and stuff in Illinois, and he hadn't duck hunted in years, and he was like asking me what kind of ammo to get and whatever, and I'm just telling him, what I use and works good for me, and he's like, well, what should I use 3.5-inch shells? I was using 3.5-inch before, and I was like, it prompted me to kind of do some research on it, and I'm like, I don't really think you need to, but he was like, no, I'm gonna, because I'm duck hunting one time a year, and I want the most pellets, blah blah blah. And I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't care what you shoot.
Is it that psychological factor that gets most people, you think, Steve? Just that I'm getting more pellets, I'm getting more out of that.
Yeah, it seems to play into that. I think so many people get stuck in just a way of thinking, and we're all guilty. I'm no different. But it's sort of that, like I said earlier, Ford versus Chevy. You grew up with. My grandpa drove a Ford, and my dad drove a Ford, and Fords are better for A, B, C, and D, but it's really an emotional connection to the Ford that they have. And I think 3.5-inch, I've talked to people when they're getting guns like, no, it's got to be a 3.5-inch. I have to have a 3.5-inch. And they can't be talked out of it. And at the end of the day, I don't really care either. And like same thing with these reviews that I do. Hey, this is my opinion on the gun. I don't care if you love it and want to shoot it and you're happy. I'm happy for you. That's all I want is for you to be happy with your purchases.
Right.
But I might change my tune on that with a 3.5 after this video. So TBD.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. We'll have to tune in for that. One of the things that you had on here, Dad, was just, and this is obviously a very loaded question, but favorite waterfowl setup, and I think just my 2 cents that I would add for this is for the money waterfowl.
Yes, I would think of the same thing when I'm looking at that, especially after he just kind of broke it down by you get what you pay for type of stuff. Obviously you can make statements and say, hey, I'm not biased one way or the other, but I mean, really just off the cuff. I mean, what would you say? Like, hey, what you've experienced personally for you, Steve?
As far as a waterfowl setup for gun?
Yeah, and I'm talking gun, choke, your shell, your shot size. I mean, shot size is going to depend on where you're hunting, what you're hunting, that kind of thing. I understand, but but what's your kind of your go-to? Yeah,
that is a great question, and part of my problem, I have a lot of problems. I'll give you a couple of them.
Don't we all?
One of my problems is when I hunt, I'm always grabbing something different, right? It's like, hey, I reviewed this shotgun, but I've never used it in the field. Let's take it out. And I've always got these different setups, and I'm just never consistent. That's problem number one. The bigger problem is the more I get into my career, the less I hunt. And that's a big problem. Yeah. I got down this path for my love of being outdoors and hunting and hunting ducks primarily. But as life has gone on and the more I'm running this business, there's always business stuff to take care of. And that might be a bad excuse. But as you guys may know, I guess I don't know your family situations necessarily, but as you have kids, and my time's not my own either. So when I have downtime, I got to consider kids' sports schedules, and I got these exhibitions, and my wife wants to go on vacation every once in a while. That is not duck hunting, or hunting of any type, actually. So it's pretty sad the amount that I've been hunting the last couple of years. Now I do live on 80 acres, and I find lots of opportunities to slip out in the evening and bow hunt and hunt some pheasants out here and hunt some turkeys. That's really easy. But as far as travel trips, they've been extremely limited the last couple of years, and that has to change. As I goal plan for next year, that has to change, because what am I doing here if I don't get out in the field a little bit more? So I'll just say all that to be honest with you guys. Like, I'm not out there in the blind and hunting 4 days a week, right? I'm lucky if I can get out once a week to do anything.
But dude,
And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but wouldn't it be great, Tristan, Steve? I apologize in advance, but man, if we were hunting in a duck blind together, and we have Steve Gould, Target Focused Life with us, and we're going to tell all of our buddies about it, and a big group of teal comes in, and Steve just blanks it out, bro. That will be the funniest crap I have ever had happen. And just from a guy give crap perspective, I think it would be awesome. It would be awesome. But you know what? I can guarantee you that I don't care how bad you shoot, you could probably shoot behind your head with a mirror and shoot better than I can.
I could probably do trick shots on ducks better than I shoot from the shoulder at times for whatever dumb reason that is. But like I said, I can miss as good as anybody. And usually, I spend all summer shooting guns and shooting clays. And usually the first time I go out hunting is just like, it's different. Anyone that shoots knows that. And it's like, okay, I got to approach this a little bit differently. And it takes me a few shots to get warmed up. So if I hit you guys up first hunt of the season, you would definitely be laughing.
Hey, no,
and
man,
I would be laughing
we
too.
We would be privileged to spend a blind time or behind a tree in the timber or anything like that with you, man. And, it makes me think, so what's it look like for you? Like if you wanted to go and grab a weekend on public land up there in Minnesota, I was just following, I don't know if you follow, Tristan, what's Brad, Cohen Wildlife Research, but they GPS track ducks and they display the data and stuff. It's incredible work that they're doing over there. And I was just looking at this blue-winged teal that they had that was wintering or summering in Minnesota. It's where they went up there to breed and stuff. So what's it look like whenever you're a waterfowl hunter out there on public land in Minnesota? Because isn't it the state or land? No, Michigan's the land of lakes, right? But I know Minnesota has a lot of that.
Land of 10,000 lakes.
In the outdoors, every detail counts. See sharper, aim clearer. From the river's edge to the heart of the flooded timber, Hook and Bullet has your vision covered. Hook and Bullet's purpose-built optics are flawlessly crafted to give you an edge regardless of your outdoor pursuit. Use code ZeroDuck30 for 15% off a pair of Hook and Bullet sunglasses today.
Minnesota. 10,000 lakes, that's what it is. So what's it look like up there as a waterfowl hunter? Is it tough? Do you guys really have a lot of opportunity, or what do you think?
Depends where you're at in the state. I wouldn't say it's great right around us, but there can be days and pockets, or there's a window when it can be pretty good. But you got to be in the right bodies of water. Depends also what you're going after. If you're going after divers or puddle ducks, we don't have nearly as much shallow bodies of water as we did. I'm going to say 30 years ago. I mean, before my time. So I'm kind of just going off of the stories I've heard. We used to have a lot of potholes, a lot of sloughs, and over time, a lot of those got drained for agriculture. There's a bunch of them that got overgrown with eastern cattails, which I believe, if I might be misspeaking, but they're not native to this area. And so that we don't have these little shallow bodies of water that we used to. Drain tile goes in everywhere. So I think that shifted the central flyway more west. So the stories I've heard, I'm 38 and I wasn't hunting as a real young kid. The stories I've heard is it used to be a whole lot better around here. Now we do have the Mississippi River that goes through. I know people that hunt that. I've never hunted the Mississippi River. That can be pretty good. But you get out west, you get into the Dakotas and things get pretty good in the prairie pothole region. So you can get on some birds and really, yes, I love the trips, but I got to stop making excuses. I live right by a small river and I got a kayak 2 years ago. This is how bad it is. I'm just airing it out. I got a kayak 2 years ago and I thought, I am going to go down the river here, just me and the shotgun, and I'm going to float for ducks. I haven't done it once. I got the river a mile from my house, but such is life. I'll stop making excuses. I do plan to, I think I'm going to meet up with someone from Onyx, and we're going to do a hunt in Nebraska as part of the plan.
Oh, nice.
So I do plan to get in at least one, hopefully decent duck hunting trip. And then I'll try to get up into northern Minnesota and hunt some rough grouse. I think I'm doing that at a place. But I got to get some stuff on the calendar. Now I'm feeling anxious. Thanks, guys.
Hey, guess what?
I don't got too many plans yet.
Hey, Steve, guess what? I double dog dare you to get out in that kayak at least once.
I'll do it.
All right.
I'll do it. You know, if nothing else, I'll just have a nice little float.
There you go. That's right.
That's right. So, you know, one of the things that I love is just kind of digging in, just exposing a little bit of personal journey is, you know, Steve, what do you think, you know, personally along your journey of this and the thousands of shots you've taken and the I don't even know how many guns and how many different shell combinations and everything else. What do you think comes to mind when you think about the top 3 things that it's like, if I was to say, man, these are the 3 takeaways I've had in my life from going down this journey, what would those be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number 1, there's a lot to learn. So have humility, ask questions. You don't have to act like you know it all. And that's a challenge. I think from the standpoint of, you know, you're a professional and whatever you do, you got a YouTube channel, like people look up to you and they want you to be the expert.
Right.
But, and I try to be as honest as I can be. And there's a lot I don't know, you know, and I got to say that, hey, I'm not 100% sure about that. Here's, like I told you earlier in the show with the 3.5 inch, here's what my gut says, but I don't have the knowledge and the data to really make a qualified conclusion.
Sure.
And I hate to say that because I want to be the expert. I want to know it all, but I don't. So I'll just have to be humble.
There's a lot of variables there though, you know?
There is, and patterning sort of stresses me out, and some of that testing stuff. People want me to pattern guns in my reviews, and it's sort of like, well, there's too many variables for me to actually give you some conclusive data on this shotgun, because every gun can be slightly different, every choke combination, ammo combination. So, you know, how can I actually package this in a watchable video that gives you something useful? And I don't know. Maybe I'll just start shooting patterns that won't be useful, but people will enjoy it. So there we
go. That's great. That's great. So, you know, I know you do a lot of events, and obviously your son's involved, and thank you for sharing that with us. You know, I can't help but think, while I'm asking you that question, what have you seen, like, what's the biggest highlight that you've seen your son enjoy the most about what he's doing and what you guys do together? Because, you know, I'm sitting here looking, and as you were talking about your son doing that with you, I'm thinking about all the years and the times that I've watched Tristan grow up and have these special moments or these special things, seeing him love doing what he's doing. Obviously your son loves that. What's some of those takeaways?
Yeah, that's I'm watching him outside on the pool right now, actually. He's old enough to be by himself. I don't want anyone to think he's doing a podcast and his son's in the pool. How dangerous. He's good. I would hope, here's one of my biggest takeaways, and I think this is what he would say too, is actually just spending time together.
That's cool.
The shows are just a conduit, right? And yeah, we get to go out and we get to make money, and the shows are fun to do, but we spend more time driving in a car than we do performing shows.
Amen to
or
that.
Flying in an airplane. But the fact that we are getting out of the house, it's kind of like hunting. We're going on an adventure. We don't know exactly where we're going. We haven't been there before. We don't know what the outcomes are. And it's the little things, right? So I'm just picturing, we went to the show in Nebraska, Southwest Nebraska. It was quite a haul from home. I want to say it was like 12 hours, give or take.
Sure.
But I mean, so we spent 24 hours driving to perform for 1 hour.
Oh man.
But it warms my heart because, like, I remember the long haul. we're kind of enduring and suffering together. Granted, he's on the tablet in the passenger seat and I got to stare at the road.
Right.
But we stopped in a town to spend the night. We went and got a dinner and we had conversation. And that might come across as cheesy to some, but it's just like, that's what warms my heart about it.
Yeah.
And I've just loved that opportunity to do that with my son. And I've asked him many times, you think you'll want to do this when you get older? I mean, you don't have to do it as a living, but you think you'll want to keep doing it? Maybe. He just shrugs his shoulders. Everything's maybe. In fact, a funny story. We started practicing some trick shots a couple years ago. And I said, hey, would you ever want to perform in a live show with me? He said the same exact thing. Maybe, just like he could care less. He doesn't, whatever. He's kind of a chill guy. And, but he does, he goes and performs a live show. He's mic'd up. He doesn't say much, but he's mic'd up. He shoots in front of a live audience. And that night at the hotel, he says to me, Dad, that felt awesome. And that's one of the highlight moments. But I think he enjoys sort of a little bit of the notoriety, the attention that comes with being on stage. And I mean, I'm not saying I don't, but when people are coming up after a show and asking for his autograph too, as a 12-year-old, like that's pretty dang cool. While his friends are playing video games all weekend, he's traveling and making money, signing autographs. And whether he does it or not for whatever period of time, after I'm done, it doesn't matter, because these are moments and memories that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is super awesome. So what do you guys got on the calendar for the rest of the year as far as like events that you have coming up? Like if we're listening to this and we're like, man, I'd love to be able to catch these guys in a show, what are some of the places you guys plan on visiting, shows or any teaching events, things like that you have coming up?
I'm laughing because I'm visualizing my conversations with my mom on the phone, and she'll say, Steve, where are you traveling to next? Where's your next show? And I'll say, I know I have one in a couple weeks. I can't tell you where it's at right now. I'm not even there mentally. But I know we have some shows coming up. One's in North Dakota. I believe that's a private event. A lot more of these events end up being private nowadays because of one, kind of what I charge. It's not real cheap. I wouldn't say it's crazy expensive, but it's not real cheap. So you end up doing a lot of private entertainment. But I only want to do 10 shows a year, right? I was at a point where I was doing 30 and I started to not enjoy it because I was gone all the time. And the only way to grow your business was to work harder, work longer, be gone more. And I sort of saw the ceiling to that. And I said, like my kids are growing extremely fast. Every year I get to New Year's Eve and I'll scroll through my phone. And I ask my family to do the same thing. Scroll through your phone, look at the pictures, and let's talk about what you're grateful for this year, what some of the highlights were. And you just see how fast these kids are growing as you scroll the pictures on your phone. Yeah, and so maybe I'll do more in the future when the kids are out of the house. But right now, like we started the podcast, I'm a pretty happy man doing 10 shows a year. Plus, I travel for videos and stuff, too, on top of that. But, if I can eat some dinner and be out in the tractor for a couple hours and just doing that type of stuff, I'm a pretty content person after working all day long. But so, yeah, Nebraska, I know we're going to be in, I said North Dakota. Yeah, then Nebraska, Oklahoma. That might be it for the rest of the year. As far as shows, no speaking engagements on the calendar right now. I only do 2 to 4 speaking engagements a year. Kind of same deal. I limit that a little bit, and I try not to do them in the summer. Summers are crazy busy. I do love, I really enjoy speaking as well. I spoke at a logging conference a couple months ago.
Huh.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting that they reached out and wanted me to speak at that, but I don't know anything about logging, although I've cut a lot of trees down with shotguns. I don't know what you want me to say.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so you asked me earlier, Tony, 3 things that come to mind that I've learned on the journey. And I mentioned about there's a lot to learn, and that's great. But something that builds on that I learned also is you don't need to know it all to help others.
It's good advice.
And I've been paralyzed in the past by fear. When I start thinking about jumping into Gould Brothers, that was what my brother and I did together, the exhibitions, and then Target Focus Life. Both times there was an element of fear, actually even more in Target Focus Life. Even though I'd accomplished some pretty crazy stuff for a small town kid that didn't know how to shoot or speak, Target Focus Life scared me because I sort of felt unqualified. I don't know enough. I can't help people. And that keeps you paralyzed in fear. And then I think I heard this on a podcast or a book. I don't recall where I heard it. But the concept is you don't need to know it all to help others. You just need to know a little bit more than they do. Right?
Wow.
And so if I have a little bit of knowledge, I can build on my knowledge and my expertise over time. And man, that's one thing I love about doing videos is I go out and I learn something every time I do it. And there's a lot of people that gives value to. There's other people that probably watch my videos and go, this guy's, a joke. I know way more than him. Probably are. There's probably a lot of people that know way more than me. That's fine. I don't need to know it all. I just need to be a little further along than the people I'm helping.
Yeah, that's good advice, man. Because I think I've at times felt a similar way. Because I'm not like kind of to your point, like paralyzed. I think I find myself paralyzed to like speak on things that I don't feel like an expert on, which in hindsight, like you said, it's like kind of silly to be that way. Because you could be helping somebody else that has less knowledge, and kind of pulling them along. But especially, being on a podcast and we're at 106 episodes now, I still find myself, things that I'm not an expert on, I tread very lightly, but I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. And, I just want to put that out there for people that feel unqualified to get started at whatever has been on their heart, because you just got to take the next step, the next right step. Right. And hopefully this is how I've come across in the podcast is I share the knowledge of the things I'm confident about. And when I'm not confident, I try to be humble with it. And like you said, Tristan, tread lightly on it. And I don't need to be a know-it-all, but you got to take a first step to get started. You got to pull that trigger. And that's one of the concepts we talk about in Target Focused Life. When you think about shooting a duck or shooting a clay, you can have your vision can be all perfect. You understand the eyes, your mount, your move is perfect. Your focus is in the right place. All the basic principles are perfect. But if you don't pull the trigger, you will never reach your intended target. And I think when it comes to life, that is something that people really struggle with because we do get paralyzed by fear. We have a vision on our heart and in our mind. We start to dial in the focus. We start to make plans. But then when it actually comes to doing something real with it, we're paralyzed by fear. And a lot of times that comes up as a question to us. What if? What if questions? What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What will people think of me? Right? We go through all those questions, and that can be crippling. And I know I wrestled with it for quite a while with Target Focus Life before I actually pulled the trigger. So sometimes you just got to pull it and then realize, whoa, I missed terribly. And then what do you do what do you guys do when you miss that first shot on a duck?
Oh, you got to correct and focus up. Correct your, make the shot.
We got from now on. We got to have.
But immediately, you pull the trigger. You pull the trigger once, right, and you miss. What do? Immediately?
You aim better. I don't know. Yeah.
No. Yeah. As soon as you do,
you pull the trigger again, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You pull it again. You usually, if they're within range, like you keep pulling the trigger.
Yep.
And sometimes you miss on all three shots, and you go, crap. Well, better reload, right?
Yeah.
And if we could approach life in the same way, it's much more complicated. Life is, but just reload and pull that trigger. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to come up short. People are going to judge you.
Yeah.
But if you have that clear vision of where you're wanting to go, that should be stronger than all the criticisms and the negative thoughts that you might even have about yourself. To keep reloading, keep pulling the trigger. Because if you do over time, I won't guarantee you success, but you'll be so much better off because you took the chance, and it might just lead you to the next great thing.
Man, that's great advice. And honestly,
Powerful.
I can't think of a better note to kind of wrap up the show on, to be honest. I mean, that's a powerful.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean.
Holy cow, man. No, Steve, I mean, I love what you're doing. Your energy is incredible. If you guys have not watched Steve's YouTube channel, you'll understand why he's got so many subscribers once you go see it, because not only is he very knowledgeable, but number two, the production and quality of everything that they do is so awesome. I mean, I don't know, give a big shout out to whoever's doing your video and editing work, because I mean, it's a full package, I think, that Steve brings with this target focused life. You know, I mean, it's just great quality information and great knowledge. It's awesome. And I'm looking forward to learning more and really just kind of following your journey, man.
That's thank you so much for the kind words. It's been awesome to visit with you guys. I so much appreciate it. I'd give a shout out to my camera guy, but you know, next thing you know, people are going to be making them big offers that I can't afford to match, and you're going to steal them from me. But Jordan does a phenomenal job. So I got to give a lot of credit to him. He takes a babbling fool out there in my backyard, and he turns it into some pretty polished, nice looking videos for sure.
That's awesome, man.
Well, man, I can't wait till the time that, you know, if we get to get on the few times that you have a chance to get out and waterfowl hunt. You know, if you're ever down in our neck of the woods, or you're making it down into the Midwest, you know, and just looking for a place to hunt or something, definitely hit us up. And if we can't help you out directly, we definitely know some people that would. And man, I look forward to the day that we can sit in the blind together and I can learn a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you. Keep up the great work.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Appreciate it,
Steve.
man. Have a great night.
Yeah, you as well. Take care, fellas.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.